So today we're going to be talking about plantar fasciitis. Now, most people will report that they have pain right around this heel spot, kind of along this edge. And they usually say that it's worse in the morning or after they've been sitting for long periods of time, but it gets a little bit better as they warm up. So let's talk a little bit about the term fasciitis. It's similar to the term tendonitis, which is kind of more of a bunk term that most of the research has displayed that it really doesn't have to do with an inflammation of the plantar fascia, and it also doesn't really have to do with inflammation of a tendon. So we prefer the terminology fasciopathy, similar to how we use the term tendinopathy. Now, you might be wondering, why is that even important? And it's because an itis usually implies inflammation, which implies that it needs ice and rest and maybe some NSAIDs of some kind. Well, in fact, that's actually the opposite of what we want to do for things like tendinopathy, and even the same for fasciopathy. Now, while it may seem intuitive to roll something on the bottom of the foot to try to make it feel better, we actually don't have a lot of research to show that that's beneficial, and in fact, maybe some more clinical indication that it could just aggravate the problem without ever really even changing the tissue. So with that said, let's actually go over some more helpful things that you could do with your plantar fascia. One of the first things that maybe is a little bit more obvious is to simply perform some load management strategies, and that includes offloading some of the things that are more aggravating. Typically, it's running mileage or intensity. Maybe it's your plyometric program. Just taking a little bit of playtime off of some of the things that tend to be a little bit more aggravating. The other thing, if that's not an option, is you can try out some foot insoles. You can get some custom ones that are made from a podiatrist, but it really doesn't need to be that complicated. In fact, even just some generic ones off the shelf or a little heel cup, just something to give you a little bit more cushion, has actually been shown to be very effective for helping offload some of that within day type activity load management. Now, to get into some more of the treatment side of things and exercises you can do, let's start with a super simple one, which is just a stretch that you can do at the edge of your bed before you start walking in the morning, because typically morning pain is pretty bad with plantar fasciitis. So what we're going to do is just take the big toe, pull it back with the hand, and I'm just going to pull up, and you can even pull with the foot, trying to pull your toe up towards your knee along with your hand. Give that a stretch for about 10 seconds, kind of undo it, just move the toe and just wiggle that around, and then go back to the stretch for another 10 seconds. You really only need to do that maybe 5 to 10 times, just till it starts to loosen up a little bit. And then when you're first taking your steps to the bathroom or wherever you're going the first thing in the morning, it usually makes it a little less sensitive. Now, one of the better things you can do, similar to a tendinopathy, is to simply load it progressively over time. So what we're going to start with is just be a heel raise from flat ground, where I'm just working on double leg from neutral position. Once you can do single leg pretty comfortably, working towards the inside edge of the foot for a little added tension near the inside edge of the heel, is that if that's where your symptoms are coming from, then we can move to a stair, where I'm moving from a deficit on two legs, okay, then moving to a single leg from that position. And then lastly, one of the things that you might find very helpful is similar to that big toe stretch that we did earlier. If you just take a towel roll and put it right where your big toe is going to be. So I'm going to put my big toe there and the ball of the foot just behind that towel. So that way, when I come up into extension of the foot and I come to that top of that heel raise, my big toe is getting extended more than it would if it was just on flat ground, similar to what you felt during that stretch. So just some really simple things there. Now, what we're going to go over next are some just general exercises that you can include, but really load monitoring, managing the load on the aggravating activities, pulling back on some of those for a period of time, adding some load in these longer, more harder contraction, maybe smooth tempo. Maybe you go 3 seconds each direction, working through the fullest range that you feel comfortable, and then even some just simple like shoe modification with the soles that I showed you earlier. That alone can go a long way. But if you're looking for a little bit more to do in the weight room that may encourage some of these healing processes to take place in your fasciopathy, let's go over some of those now. Okay, so by no means is this exercise list super comprehensive, but I hope it's helpful for maybe some ideas that you might have. So one thing is single leg balance, just getting some foot strength. So doing things like a single leg RDL, I could hold a barbell, two dumbbells, or even a dumbbell in this offhand, and maybe use this hand for some rack support. Just something like that is going to challenge the musculature of the ankle and the foot. The other thing you could do is, if you want to do a double leg RDL, you could put your toes or feet onto either a slant board or extra plates, so that as you go down, you might get a little extra calf stretch, which can be maybe helpful in some of that plantar fascia, as the calf musculature and Achilles tendon kind of is a continuous layer of fascia that runs to the underside of the foot. So maybe something could be helpful there. Now, the other options you might have is either you hold onto a rack, or you could just do it free, is actually a sissy squat, because I'm getting a lot of big toe extension as I do this. And so when I come down and then come back up, I'm actually getting some of that stretch that we talked about earlier. But if that seems like maybe too complicated, or you're not able to do that because of knee strength or whatever, um, even just a simple like split squat. And what I might do is I might take a plate and might as well just do it. Ouch. I would put it there, set up with the heel floated so that I have to hold some tension. And maybe I'm just doing split squats here. You could even do a rear foot elevated split squat type position from there. But just some ideas that as you work into some of your more general lower body strength and conditioning movements, these are some things that you could incorporate to help move that plantar fascia along, or at least challenge and stress the musculature of the foot that would ultimately help that fascia heal with time. Something else I would really like doing here is the overcoming isometrics I've been talking about, that you could do with or without the towel roll, where I just set up and push as hard as I could here, or like I said, without the towel roll, and just be pushing like this. You could also set this up inside of a rack where maybe you just put so much weight on the bar that you're unable to move it, or a Smith machine can be really good for this because you can just load up plates on it. And then I'm just pushing simply into it as hard as I can on that calf raise, with or without the towel roll, like I said. And I think doing something like 3 to 5 sets of maybe 5 seconds or 7 seconds maximum effort push on that could be very helpful for treating a plantar fasciopathy.